Hi, BJ Posnecki from Inspect and Check. Today we're going to go over just some basic knowledge and homeowner maintenance tips on your furnace. So I'm just going to kind of work my way around the furnace and all the components and just kind of touch a little bit on some things that I think that would be important and helpful for you guys. One thing I do recommend is to get an annual service checkup by your local heating and air conditioning contractor. Very, very important. Your best bet is always to replace things before they fail, because it seems to be when we have a polar vortex or a heat wave that your system goes out. So I would definitely be proactive, and if something's kind of questionable, just go ahead and get it replaced. There is a blower motor in here, so when you turn on your heater air conditioning, there'll be a motor in there that basically just kicks on, and that's what pushes the air. The burner compartment, okay, so this is where in heat mode is where the burners will ignite. Okay, it's just like kind of like a little mini flamethrower. Okay, the heat will pass through there as well as the heat exchanger. And then with the air conditioning, if you look up here, you'll see these line sets, and that's behind this ductwork is where the evaporator coil is, and that is where it cools off and gives you that nice crisp cool air. I want you to notice or look for these little windows to look through here. Usually they'll be on both panels, and what this is for this furnace, and I'm going to take this off so you guys can get a visual in here, but this upper panel, you can look through here to see the burners when they're actually on. You could check for proper ignition and flame. And then the bottom here is, inside here there is a little LED light. Then there is this legend, and if you're having any issues with your furnace, this light will beep in relation to the legend and tell you what the issue is. When you talk to your heating and air conditioning guy and you call them for a service call because something's not working, they may ask you, hey, what is the system telling you? And just this really helps them, because then this way they can come prepared with the proper parts. Especially if it's a late night service call, they may have to go to the shop and grab the parts. So it just speeds things up. I will say one little trick is 9 out of 10 times, if you're having an issue with your furnace, check your furnace filter. I can't tell you how many times somebody's called me and they're having a problem with their furnace, and it was just a dirty furnace filter. Most of you guys will have a smaller furnace filter slot to slide in the filter in and out. But if you should have one of these, all you do is to change out the filter is give the top a good pull. There's a bracket in the bottom there. You just take that out, and then usually you can just grab the filter and slide it out. One important thing to note is the arrow always wants to be pointing back into the furnace in the airflow. So the air comes back from the cold air return, passes through the filter, and then goes to the furnace. Put your new filter in, slide it in, put this tab that's on the bottom here onto the filter rack, and then give it a good push. Now this is the only area I'm going to tell you in your home that I want you to get the cheapest filters, okay? So all these filters, now like this one for example, has a FPR rating of 10. So the filters are going to come in two different ratings, MERV, MERV, or FPR. And the higher the number, the more restrictive the filter is. We want you to get the cheapest, lowest MERV filter you can possibly get, which is usually a 3 or a 5. If they're out of a number, get the next lowest number. And why we say to do that is because the more restrictive that it is, the more stress it's going to put on the blower motor. We want to try to maximize the longevity of the furnace. I typically tell people to do is to buy a dozen of them. Put a reminder in your phone, check it once a month. If it's clean, just let it ride. Another little tip, if you change out your furnace filter and you're still having issues, turn the service switch off. Or if for some reason you don't have a service switch, go to the electrical panel and turn off the circuit breaker. It doesn't always work, but I can't tell you how many times I've been able to correct a problem, whether it be, with heat or air conditioning, by just turning off the unit for a couple minutes. Sometimes you just need to do a hard restart and let everything reboot, and it clears out whatever problem you had. The motherboard right here, all your electronics. This is like the brain of the furnace. The blower motor, this is the motor that pushes all the air through the house. An inducer motor, which pushes the exhaust. Gas control valve, and then your burners. Our igniter is starting to glow. And make sure, if you're doing this, you don't put your face too close, just so we don't get any flame roll out. I've had that happen to me, and it's a good way to lose a couple eyebrows. And then, as you see here, we've got all of our burners. Let's get this out of the way. We've got all our burners burning nice, and we want a good bluish flame. Shutoff valve, so if you have any issues or an emergency, you smell gas, you need to service the unit, you're going to want to turn the gas off here by turning that shutoff valve handle 90 degrees. This condensation line is for the evaporator coil. So one of the things, when you have your air conditioning on, one of the tasks, not only is it cooling the house, but the evaporator coil is pulling the excess humidity out of the air. So when the air conditioning is running, it usually keeps your relative humidity to around 50%. Your system may or may not have a humidifier. If you don't have a humidifier, I highly recommend one, okay? So what the humidifier does is the exact opposite. So how we just went over the evaporator coil pulling the moisture out of the air, a humidifier adds it back in when you're in heat mode, okay? So remember how we talked about when the air passes through the burner, pulls out all the moisture, leaving your air very dry. And that's why you'll get, in the wintertime, you get dry skin. You may get more floor squeaks, allergens, pollutants, flus, illnesses, things of that nature. So by having a humidifier, it helps with all of that. One thing that you're gonna wanna do, and it's looking like this has to be done here now, is you're going to want to replace this water pad, because it's going to get calcium and it'll get some mold and mildew as the year goes by. So I would always have some extra water pads on hand. Put a reminder on your phone to check the humidifier pad once a year. With your humidifier will be a humidistat, and what this does is regulates the relative humidity within the home. So this one doesn't have, this one just has some numbers here. It just has from off, normal, test would be on all the time. There's some models that actually have a digital humidistat. That's the way to go, because then this way you can really dial it in. I usually say start around 40%, and then as the temperatures get lower, if we get a really, really cold winter, you're going to want to reduce or lower the humidity in relation to what the outside temperature is. So you can just Google relative humidity chart, and it'll give you a breakdown on the temperature, the degrees outside, and what the percentage should be inside the home. Because if you have it too high and it's too cold, what happens is you end up getting a bunch of condensation on all your windows, and then what happens is all that water runs down the window, down onto the windowsill, down the wall, and it stains everything. If you have really good window treatments, open up the louvers just to get some airflow in there so that that air can circulate, so you're not trapping that warm, moist air against a really cold window pane. Above the humidifier is the rest of the supply ductwork that supplies the whole house. So you'll have a main trunk line, and then it'll branch off. Coming back is what we call the cold air return, and what that does is it brings back the air throughout the home so that the air is circulating. We always have this air movement throughout the house. We're supplying it, and then we are returning it back to recondition it. The air comes back down the cold air return. It then passes through the filter and then starts the cycle all over again. Hope you guys liked the video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.